to be talking about the social role theory, the cognitive development theory, the gender schema theory, and finally, a theory that considers the context given by Dukes and Major in 1987. But to begin with, let's first talk about the social role theory. So, according to the social role theory, sex differences between males and females are a result of the different roles men and women play in the society. So, men are primarily responsible for work outside the home house, whereas the expectations from women are that they're going to be responsible for domestic chores and looking after the house, the children, etc. So these two different roles call for two different kinds of skill sets, and the skill set that you need to look after children, to look after the house, the family, is nurturance, is caring. And the kind of skill set you need to go out in the world is to be competitive, is to have better probably spatial abilities, is to be more agentic, dominant, independent. And this is why this is considered to be, this theory says that it's because of the different roles that men and women are playing out. That is why there are gender differences, namely women are more they are more relationship oriented, they're more nurturant, whereas men are more independent and agentic. Now, support for this theory comes from the findings that in the West, where the gender roles have have changed over a period of time, where you have many fathers who are working from home, or fathers who are looking after the children, or fathers who are not working and looking after their families, whereas mothers are working. Similarly, women have entered fields that were earlier considered to be dominated by men. For instance, even in India, if you see places like petrol pumps, at least 10-15 years ago, it was, I don't think you could ever find a woman who was employed at petrol pumps. But today it's very common to have women being employed at petrol pumps. So because the gender roles are changing over a period of time, therefore sex differences are also reducing between men and women. Also, another point to be noted before we move on to the next theory is the different occupations. So, as you are already aware, if you consider the different occupations in the society, there are some occupations that are female dominated and some occupations that are male dominated. So, what are some of the occupations where you find mostly females? You'll find women mostly in teaching, in nursing, and secretaries. So these are considered to be female oriented. In fact, if you ever have a female secretary, you won't call them secretary, you would call them assistants. So, and secretary is supposedly exclusively related to a woman or a female. Whereas if you consider male dominated jobs, business world, tech world is still considered to be something that is dominated primarily by males. So holding the because women are expected to be teachers, and more women are expected to be teachers than men, and more men are expected to take the positions of CEOs or management positions. Therefore, these different jobs again require a different kind of skill set, which is why you find gender differences to be present in males and females. So, this is about the social role theory. I reiterate that the different roles that men and women are expected to have in society result in sex differences between men and women. Now, coming to the cognitive development theory. Now, according to cognitive development theory, it focuses on how from the outside world you get a lot of information about gender. Yet, at the end of the day, the child actively develops, works on his thought, organizing the role perceptions and learnings that he has around the conceptions of body and the world. It looks a little complicated, but it's a very simple thing. What they're trying to say is that how do I, as a human being, as I'm growing up, how do I perceive and conceive my gender and the gender or the other gender? I am a female. My identity as a woman, my identity as a girl, how it has changed over a period of time as a result of learning more about what kind of a woman I would want to be, what kind of a man I would want to be. So all of these perceptions and conception that an individual has, the child has while growing up, about his body, about the gendered roles and expectations, that is part of the cognitive development theory. So in this theory traces gender as an identity and how it changes, how it develops, actually would be a better word, develops over a period of time in children. So Kohlberg says by the age of 2 and 3, children start labeling themselves as boy or girl. In fact, parents start talking to the children and they start talking about कि अच्छा आप लड़की हो तो जाती हूँ, मैं जाती हूँ, जाता हूँ नहीं बोलोगे आप. So when you have parents who are giving these labels, लड़का ऐसा है, लड़की ऐसी है, लड़कियां ऐसे नहीं करती, लड़का ऐसे नहीं करते, so the child starts developing the roles of gendered roles. And initially, of course, अगर आप किसी छोटे बच्चे से, if you go and ask any young kid about 4-5 years old कि लड़के कौन होते हैं, लड़की कौन होती है, so if you ask them about their understanding, you will generally find that they have very superficial understanding कि लंबे बाल हैं तो लड़की है और छोटे बाल है, बॉय कट है तो बॉय है, और लंबे बाल लड़कियां रखती हैं, लड़कियां फ्रॉक पहनती है, लड़के फ्रॉक थोड़ी ना पहनते हैं, लड़कियां स्कर्ट पहनती हैं, लड़के स्कर्ट नहीं पहनते हैं. So this is initially how on the basis of these superficial things, the children start distinguishing between boys and girls. It's But before 5 years of age, what happens is that they are not using these labels, boy and girl label, consistently. What this means is that they may be confused, they may think that gender may be a fluid thing. By fluid, I mean, uh, so they may look at a girl who has short hair and call them, ये तो लड़का है, ये तो लड़का है, ये मेरा भाई है. So the child may be confusing here and may not have solidified concepts of males and females. So men and women, girls and boys. Gender constancy is achieved by 5 years of age. Now, again, over a period of time, gender identity becomes part of your self identity. Now, self identity consists of many things, plethora of things. It consists of your religious identity, it consists of your career orientation, it consists of your relationship and what kind of friendships do you like. It consists your own understanding about your own personality. So, self identity is the broader term and gender identity is part of that. So gender identity, after the children start growing up, becomes part of the self identity, and children in this way become highly motivated to behave in a manner that is consistent with their self concept. So if a child identifies as a boy or a girl, this child will behave in the same way. So I have begun, now I have a gender identity of a girl, सो देयरफॉर लड़कियां पैर क्रॉस करके बैठती हैं, लड़कियां ज़्यादा तेज़ बोलती नहीं हैं, लड़कियां रात को लेट बाहर नहीं जाती हैं. सो आई विल नाउ अडेयर विद दीज आई विल बिहेव इन दिस मैनर सो दैट आई बिहेव in a manner that is consistent with my self concept, which is of course related to my gendered identity. Now, Bandura and Bassi in 1999 they advanced the notion of social cognitive theory. Now they say that cognitive development is definitely one factor of through which the children acquire gender roles. However, there are social influences also. One can't deny that social influences are not how part of how we develop our gendered identities as we grow up. How? So they say that before we have a concept of man or a woman or a boy or a girl and what kind of a woman I am, it is actually highly influenced by the kind of socialization we receive, what we talked about in the previous theory, gender socialization theory. So, for instance, you may have seen how parents will correct the child कि तू लड़का है, तू बॉल डॉल के साथ क्यों खेल रहा है, तू लड़का है जो तू लड़की है कि तू ऐसे रो रहा है, सॉरी. सो पॉइंट बीइंग दैट नहीं, लंबे बाल सिर्फ लड़कियां रखती हैं, लड़के नहीं रखते, हम आपके बाल छोटे करेंगे. So through rewards and through punishment, rewards would be the parent praises the child when he uses the correct gendered terms. So, for instance, if the child uses मैं खाना चाहता हूँ, as a boy says मैं खाना चाहता हूँ, तो the parents may praise them because earlier on he may be saying मैं खाना चाहती हूँ as a boy, and he may have been corrected time and again. So, social influences processes are what they say also important in development of your gender identity. Now, next is your gender schema theory. Before we understand gender schema, I think it would be important to discuss what schema is. Schema is a construct. It can be about anything and everything in life. It is something that you use to guide your behavior. For instance, if I've when I've never been to an airport, and for the first time when I go to the airport, I start developing a schema of airport based on what I am observing. So I observe that airport is a place where people bring their bags. They are traveling. They take their bags to the ticket counter. The ticket counter gives you it gives you a boarding pass, and then after that you go to the security. After that security is done, you wait for, and then you get on to the airplane. And so this is how I'm developing a schema of uh, airports. Now, similarly, you could have schema of a classroom. You could have schema of what you could have schema of maths. That maths is very hard, maths is very scary, maths is very difficult to do. Or you could have a schema that is maths is very easy, maths is very interesting, maths is a lot of fun. So schema is the construct in your head. So if you have a schema of a mother, and you say, oh no, mothers cannot do this, what kind of a mother would do this to their child? It basically means that the behavior that you've observed in someone is not consistent with the construct of motherhood that you have in your head. So, coming to now gender schema. Gender schema is can be explored in a very simple manner. If I ask you to list down all the characteristics that are related to being a man or a woman. So let's say you say, okay, men can lift up, are physically stronger. They can lift more loads than physical loads than women can. Women are very sensitive, women are very emotional, women are very docile, women are very quiet, women have longer hair, men are very aggressive. So these are all maybe part of your gender scheme, maybe a cognitive construction in your head, a thought in your head, that this is what men and women are supposed to be. Now, as you can now understand, where does this knowledge come from? Your socialization, from the world around you, from media, from parents, from neighbors, from friends, from colleagues. So this is the information that your schema, all kinds of schema actually, and but we're discussing gender schema over here, comes from your the world around you. Now, there are these two terms that are very important to be distinguished: gender schematic and gender aschematic. Gender schematic refers to a person who uses gender as a category, as a schema, to decide, to make various decisions in life. So if I say no, I can't wear pink, because if I'm a boy and I say I can't wear pink because pink is a color associated with girls and I will not wear pink. So I'm using gender to make a decision about my clothes. Or if I am a girl, I say नहीं, मैं रात को लेट नहीं निकल सकती घर के बाहर, क्योंकि लड़कियां घर के बाहर लेट नहीं जा सकती हैं, अलाउड नहीं है. Again, I'm using gender to make a decision whether I can go out or not. So for someone who says नहीं, लड़कियों के लिए ये वाला field अच्छा नहीं है, could be any field, could be acting, could be modeling, could be maybe law, or police, IPS officer, लड़कियों के लिए अच्छा नहीं है, IPS मत लो, आप IAS ले लो. What that means is that your decision, whether the career, the clothes, the every decision depends on your understanding of what the gender as a construct is, what man as a construct is in your head, and what woman as a construct is. Gender aschematic are those people who compared to gender schematic people relatively do not depend on the gender category to make different decisions in life. So if my daughter comes up and says that she wants to go on a trip, I will not think if she's a girl or a boy in refusing or accepting that you should go on a trip. The gender does not play a role in my reply or response to her question in or her something that she the permission that she wants to take from me. I will not think. I may think of other things. I may think of safety of a human being. I may think of how far away is it. May think of her health, but I may not think that it's because she's a girl that she should not be allowed to go on a trip. So this would be gender aschematic. Sandra Bem is a very famous psychologist who's worked in the area of gender. Now, Sandra Bem used the concept of gender aschematic people to give the concept of androgyny. Now, androgynous, you may have heard about androgynous. Androgynous means that someone who has masculine as well as feminine features. By features, I mean the qualities in terms of so there are certain characteristics you associate with being masculine, and then certain characteristics with being very feminine. So maybe dance is a something that you may consider to be very feminine, but if you have a man who does not think about the fact that he's a man and he should not be dancing, then this man is likely to be aschematic and androgynous, that these individuals are combining the qualities of masculinities and feminities. So if a woman comes across as extremely assertive, you're not going to evaluate her on the basis of um, the fact that as a woman she should not be too aggressive and assertive. You will see her as having qualities of both man and women. In fact, you will find androgyny to be a concept that has been there in Hindu beliefs, the concept of ardhanarishwar, half man and half woman. So go and google this ardhanarishwar, what this is, and you'd realize that that is a concept of androgyny, which basically means mentally perhaps we are all masculine and feminine, but some of us may choose to come to be more overtly feminine or overtly masculine, which is when we become gender schematic. So what I also want to talk here is Sandra Bem's evolution of understanding of gender. So initially, Sandra Bem's research in what she believed was that people should get rid of the construct of gender. That लड़का और लड़की का concept ही नहीं होना चाहिए world में. But then she later on realized that probably this concept was extremely utopian and ideal, and it's not possible for people to forget that there are these two categories of men and women. So then she said that perhaps we should turn down the volume on sex differences. What this means is that लड़के लड़के में लड़का लड़की में क्या फ़र्क होता है, या आदमी और औरत में क्या फ़र्क होता है, when we have discussions around this, then we should probably actually not have discussions around these things. We should talk more about what is similar, what is common in men and women, instead of discussing at length or being very interested in how they are very different. Lately, her approach has changed again and again. That has become a very, very interesting way of understanding gender. And she says that instead of turning down the volume on sex differences, turn up the volume on sex differences. What this means is that you do talk about sex differences, but do not talk about merely two genders. And this is the latest work in the area of gender, where gender binaries are being challenged. Gender binaries means that there are two kinds of gender: male and female, man, woman, girl, boy. Now, there are many people who challenge it and say that I do not identify as a male or a female, and the pronoun that I want you to use for me should not be he or she, but they or them. So, the concept of other, the concept of other gender, that concept is when you include more than two genders, when you include the concept of gender fluidity, that you are not restricted to these two boxed categories, when you turn up the discussion, when you turn up the volume of the discussion around this, is how we will actually be able to defeat the discrimination, the prejudices, and the harassment that individuals go through on a daily basis, for because their identities have been boxed in under the labels of man or a woman. Last model, a very important model, is by Dukes and Major in 1987. Now, what they're saying, it may, at first, when you read this, go through this theory, it may feel like it's a very complex theory, but it's not very complex. What these individuals are saying is that um, gender display of gender related behavior, when I act masculine, when I act feminine, when I act or behave in a way that relates to my gender, it's actually dependent on the conditions that are there, on the environment that is there, on the context that is there. So they said that sex difference, whether or not we observe sex difference, what would that mean? Let me take a simple sex difference that a lot of people actually believe in, which is girls like to play with dolls and boys like to play with trucks, or girls are poorer drivers than boys, or women drive very women don't know how to drive and men are better drivers than women. So these are sex differences. Now, these sex differences do not depend on some distant causal factor, like बचपन में socialization हुआ था ऐसा, genetics है ऐसा आपका, differently wired brains है, girls were raised differently, boys are raised differently. No, they believe that it actually depends more on proximal and immediate causes. Context, आपके environment में कौन क्या कैसे कब क्या हो रहा है, उस पे डिपेंड करता है कि मैं कैसे बिहेव करूंगी. विल आई ड्राइव पुअरली, विल आई ड्राइव बेटर, विल आई how will I behave? Any gendered behavior is not a result of long term or distant causal factors, but short term immediate factors, such including the context that the person is part of. Now they have discussed these three, you can say these three topics, which they're going to relate at the end of the day and form this flow chart. So let's come to perceiver. Perceiver has an expectation about whether the person will display a behavior or not. So perceiver is me driving, and the target is the person driving. So I become the perceiver, and the target is someone who's displaying that behavior. So the target may behave, the explanation that I get, expectation that I get, that I have, sorry, the expectation that I have can be confirmed by either cognitive confirmation or behavioral confirmation. What is cognitive confirmation? Behavior is often subject to multiple interpretations, especially social behavior. So, what this means is, if you say boys are more active than girls, it means that when I say boys are extremely active and girls are underactive, they're not very active. So I may be perceiving things in a way that confirms these expectations. So, I may be perceiving, uh, whenever girls are more active, I may remove that from my mind. I may not even perceive it, or even if I perceive it, I will look at that as an exception कि सारी लड़कियां ऐसी नहीं होती, सिर्फ ये लड़की थोड़ी शैतान है. Otherwise, the the boys are more active. तो अगर मेरे को कार मेरे को, let's say if I find someone driving rashly and I say this must be a woman driving, of course, but if you look and you'll find no, this was actually a man driving, what will happen is that you may actually then say that नहीं, actually उसकी गलती नहीं थी, वो आगे वालियों की गलती थी, वो लड़का तो ठीक ही चला रहा था. So you may mentally, you may be making certain interpretations that confirm the schemas, the expectation that you have in your mind, and this is called cognitive confirmation. Behavioral confirmation is my expectation, how is it affecting the target. So if I may have discussed this in class. the stereotype threat theory. What that means is that as a woman, if I'm told that women do not perform very well in driving, women को driving नहीं आती है, and if I am driving and someone is observing me, then I'm likely to behave in a manner that would prove your negative expectations out of me. So women may end up driving poorer than men because you are expecting it, and you have communicated it verbally or subtly or consciously or unconsciously. Similarly, what I would also do is that because I believe that women are poorer drivers than men, then perhaps in my home, when I have to go out, I would tell my son to drive. I would say नहीं नहीं उसको तो नहीं आता तू ड्राइव कर. So I am inadvertently giving more driving opportunities for my to my son than my daughter, and therefore the expectation that I have in my head is being confirmed uh, behaviorally, that women are bad drivers, not because they were, but because of the result of my expectations on this person's behavior. So this is about the perceiver. Now target is the person whose behavior is being observed, is being evaluated, and this person, the target person, can act in two ways according to them: self verification and self presentation. Self verification is I behaving the way I want to behave, the way I feel I am, consistent with my self concept. So if I am a very hyper masculine traditional male, believe then I feel that expressing emotions is something that I should not do. Crying or being upset is something that is not consistent with my self concept of being a traditional male. So I am going to act in self verification processes. So at funerals, perhaps in women, you'll find many women crying, but men are like less likely to be expressing themselves because they are verifying their self concepts. Self presentation means we may behave in not in the way that is consistent with ourselves, but are consistent with the expectations that people may have for us. So we may realize, maybe perhaps a man may feel that if they are not so, any person may feel that in a funeral, if you are not if you're laughing, if you're smiling, or if you're not appearing to be upset or sad, then that is going to be, of course, judged. So self verification is a concern with behaving in ways that are consistent with yourself, and self presentation is concerned with how yourself presents itself in front of other people, a concern with others. Finally, situations. There are some situations in which you want to adhere to your principles. So for instance, if you there are some situations you may feel that I need to be true to myself, I cannot be lying, I need to not be a hypocrite, I need to so if let's say then a person who's homosexual wants to confront his parents or her parents and tell them that I am gay, I am homosexual, I'm a lesbian. So this need, so insert, so but you may feel this only with your parents, you may not feel the need to tell everyone that you are homosexual individual. So in some situation you may actually act like a heterosexual person because that is what is expected out of you. So in some situation you may have a need for self verification, whereas other situation there may be a greater need for self presentation. Now I'm going to be explaining the theory, the flowchart that is there in the book. And so this is the flowchart that is there in the book Helgeson. And so it looks like a very complex flowchart, but it isn't. So we'll start slowly, we'll go one by one. This is the perceiver that we talked about. This is the self that we talked about, and these are some of the aspects of the context and situations that can the alter this interaction, bidirectional interaction that they're having. Now what's happening here is that these two people are interacting with each other. So perceiver has a gender belief system. So perceiver may have a gender belief system कि लड़के खाना नहीं बनाते, लड़के बावर्ची नहीं बनते, लड़के किचन में नहीं जाते, लड़कों का काम नहीं होता घर संभालना. So this may be my gender belief system. And any anything could be so the second over here, activation of gender related schema. So any um, situation can be activating my gender related schema. So if I am of man and my son says that पापा मैं खाना बनाना चाहता हूँ, मेरे को दाल बनानी, रोटी बनानी है आज, let's say a 10-year-old or something, this may activate certain gender related schemas in the father's mind. The perceiver will act towards the target. Now, the perceiver may say कि तुझे क्या जरूरत है खाना बनाने की, तेरी मम्मी है तो तू क्यों बना रहा है, तू लड़की है क्या, लड़कियों की तरह खाना बनाना सीख रहेगा क्या, लड़कियों को सीखना होता है, लड़कियों का काम होता है ये. So the person may act towards um, the target. The perceiver may act towards the target in consistent with their schema, the gender related schema that they may have. Alternatively, a person may also not respond in this way and may be encouraging कि ठीक है अगर तेरे को सीखना है तो सीख ले, बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत अच्छी बात है, I don't mind. So this again depends on the gender belief system the perceiver may have. Now the target, just like the perceiver has a belief system, the target also has a system of their own, the self system. So the same thing, wherein maybe you want to make food. So at home you want to make the dinner. So this is again a situation that may activate your schema, and your schema could be that I want to learn how to cook. I enjoy cooking, and I really want to make food for my family and feed them. So you will interpret the perceiver's action. Now, when you are told by your father something like, "Why do you want to make food? You're a boy. Boys should not be working in the kitchen." So you may perceive the intention, and that intention, of course, tells you that your father is not very happy with you taking up cooking, or your father is very happy that you're cooking for them. Either ways, what will happen is that based on how you have reacted and responded to me, I may act in self verifying or self presenting manner. Self verifying could be, I could say that nahi मेरे को अच्छा लगता है कुकिंग, सो दिस इज सेल्फ कंसिस्टेंट मैनर. आई लाइक कुकिंग, आई वांट टू टेक अप कुकिंग, आई डोंट थिंक इसमें कोई बुरी बात है कि मैं लड़का हूँ तो मैं कुकिंग नहीं कर सकता हूँ. और यू कुड वर्क इन सेल्फ प्रेजेंटेशन मैनर, वे यू कुड से नहीं नहीं एक्चुअली मम्मी की तबीयत ज़्यादा ठीक नहीं थी, बाहर से खाना मंगवाने थे, अच्छा मेरे को लगा कि मैं ही बना देता हूँ, ज़्यादा तो नहीं है कुछ, ऐसी थोड़ा बहुत मम्मी के साथ. So basically presenting oneself in a way that would is that is what the people are that's what the context is expecting you to, which is that you will tone down the fact that you perhaps enjoy cooking. So after you have acted in this manner, you're going to interpret your own action, and this would mean that either you may change your own schemas wherein you may become rigid कि okay पापा कह रहे हैं कि लड़के खाना नहीं बनाते तो मेरे को खाना नहीं बनाना चाहिए, मैं आगे से. तो आपकी मम्मी अगर चाय बनाने को बोले आपको अगली बार, नहीं पापा ने बोला लड़के खाने नहीं बनाते, लड़के किचन में नहीं जाते, तो मैं तो नहीं जाऊंगा. और on the other hand, you could also be creating schemas wherein you are the gender related schema you might be creating, and you may be behaving in a way that is different from what the social expectations are. Again, there are many modifying conditions to this equation. One is social desirability. Social desirability is कि how so you have something that is undesirable. There's a word called undesirable, and then there's a word called taboo. So taboo means absolutely prohibited. So something that is undesirable may produce different effects versus something that is uh, prohibited. So you could have, boys cooking may be undesirable, but boys wearing makeup is a taboo for many cultures. Certainty means the extent to which you are certain about yourself. So as a young kid, perhaps You may be less certain about your desires, your wants, your needs. What do you want? Do you want to cook? Do you enjoy cooking? So you may not be very sure about it. You may enjoy cooking for 2 days, next third day you got bored of it and you do something else. So certainty means the extent to which you are sure and conscious and aware about your oneself. And lastly, the situational context. Situational context could be maybe are more likely to assert yourself that no, dad, I like to cook and I want to become a chef in the future in front of just your nearby family, maybe your own family. But let's say you are a lot of your extended family comes over, or your parents' friends come over, and the same conversation happens. So your behavior may differ. You may not want to have this conversation with your father in front of others. So the context and the setting, all of this, if you see, it's not a very it appears again, like I said, complex, but it's not. What the simple thing that they're saying is that me behaving in gender traditional, gender neutral, gender conscious, gender consistent manner is not कि मैं हमेशा ही ऐसा करती हूँ और ये मेरा I have been socialized to behave in this particular way, but actually it may be a result of my context, my environment, and I could be behaving in different ways in different kinds of contexts. So perceiver is the target. So if you see, the target becomes the perceiver, and the perceiver is also the target. They basically interchange the role. So for father, for when the son challenges the father that no, I like to cook, so the father, for the father, the son is the perceiver and he's the target. So this kind of a bidirectional interaction is the bidirectional interaction between the perceiver and the target is going to be leading to the different behaviors, sex related behaviors that we may see around us. So that's it for today. And with this, we finish the major theories, sex related comparison theories.